This is the Times Television Network, and you're watching ET Now.
With Davos Direct, I'm Shaili Chopra bringing you live coverage of what's happening here at the World Economic Forum 2012. First, let me give you a big picture on the theme. The theme this time around is about transformation of capitalism models and how we will present newer models for profitability and sustainability. From a developed country point of view, it's a lot to do with how to avoid the recession. From a developing country point of view, it's a lot to do with how do we contain inflation so that growth doesn't get impacted. And of course, an overarching theme here has to do with improving human conditions, because the world now needs progress, prosperity, no poverty and equality. These are the key themes out here at Davos 2012.
As the rich and influential descend on the Swiss Alps to discuss the road ahead for the global economy, what's at stake is the future of capitalism.
2012 will be a decisive year again, because we have to move out finally of the euro crisis. Hopefully we can go into new renewed growth patterns in the world, but we have the unfinished spring revolution in the Arab world. We have the big issue of how can we make the growing economy for the benefit of everybody, which means the inclusiveness of our capitalist system, and I could go on and on.
A backlash against rising inequality risks derailing the advance of globalization and is threatening growth worldwide. While there are issues with excessive debt across the globe, the major problem is insufficient job creation that is causing social instability.
Youth unemployment is one of the very big issues, because we have to create in the next 10 years, we have to create 600 million jobs to absorb all those young people coming on the job markets. This will be not only a question whether we provide them with work or not, it will be a question which determines political and social stability in many countries.
There are clear signs of rising resentment across the globe. A survey done by the World Economic Forum shows a significant rise in geopolitical disruption over the next year. From 36%, it has gone up to 54%. The question that will be asked at the first debate tomorrow tells you the real story. Is the 20th century capitalism failing the 21st century society? ET Now, Bureau Report.
Well, the important part is that the confidence levels in the World Economic Forum and the entire entourage who is here is actually becoming very, very weak. Large number of CEOs are here, 2,600 delegates are right here, giving you a perspective of how things will play out. And in that confidence survey that was done by the WEF has seen that most people are underconfident. In fact, the majority of people who've been interviewed through the survey suggest that they are not confident either about the economy in the days ahead, and nor are they confident about the governance levels that we're going to see in the days ahead. What is also very important to see that they are getting more and more worried that the economies may not be able to sustain the deficit levels, and debt levels are going to only rise. So from $18 trillion of debt that we saw in 2000, we're up to $47 trillion of debt. That's the story. That's why I spoke to the World Economic Forum Managing Director Lee Howell, who gives me a perspective of how things will play out and what really is going to be the key theme this time from a WEF point of view. There is sort of a sort of question and introspection about what existing capitalism structures are like. Where do you think we could go as we try and deconstruct these?
Well, I think the answer to that question is really what will it deliver, and I think at this moment people want to deliver growth and employment. And that's the challenge in certain economies where you're seeing the possibility of growth, but you're not really seeing the possibility of great employment coming out of that growth. And I think all economies in the world have to deal with that duality. You can have growth, but you need employment, and particularly in certain countries where you have a very young and large young population, you have to get the employment started.
Do you think India has in many ways failed the World Economic Forum's expectations regarding these?
No, I mean, India remains a great growth story. Let's be clear. India's growth rate still remains, the envy of, let's say, the industrialized world. I think the challenge for really growing economies like India, with the assets it has, and particularly its youth culture, is really trying to also anticipate what will be the skill sets that you require for the future as well. And things are changing. The economy is changing in many ways structurally. And I think that's what's happening in the industrialized world. This isn't a cyclical problem, it's a structural one for them. I think emerging markets, particularly like India, want to, I think, focus a bit more, be ahead of the game, and really think and really skill the people in a way that they can actually do even better in the 21st century.
With that perspective in place, just let's look at what Davos looks by numbers, because sheer numbers tell you a big part of the story. Just the number of world recessions we've seen since the time the World Economic Forum started. We've already seen 4 of them. If you look at the revenue that the WEF made in 2011, which is last year, they made $157 million. That's through the number of people who paid fees for it. How much did they spend? $156 million. So all that they made in net profit was $1 million. If you look at the figures that give you a sense of how things have played out in WEF, here they are on your screen. Davos by numbers. A little bit about India at Davos. Things are still warming up. We don't have as many hoardings as we have been used to. The CII has reduced its coverage in terms of how much they wanted to spend on an India campaign. Predictably, it's largely to do with the fact that the markets are not very thrilled. The rest of the world is not happy with the corruption in India. And many CEOs, incidentally, are skipping Davos. Some would say maybe they don't want to answer about the issues around red tapeism and bureaucracy. But if you look at some of the names who are giving it a skip, Anand Mahindra is skipping it this time because he wants to go to the Sundance Festival. We've got Nandan Nilekani. He's a WF star, but he's decided to stay back to deal with his political aspects of the UID. In terms of the other people, Kumar Mangalam Birla says he's got a new assignment to deal with back home. Large number of other players who've just cancelled. I hear Montek Singh Ahluwalia has also just decided not to come in. And Kamal Nath is still making up his mind whether he can make it this time around. And some of the other CEOs, of course, on your screen, like Chanda Kochar and also KV Kawat. Well, one thing is fine, that they're not going to have enough for India contingent, but the other side is they're going to escape the massive snowfall here. Many believe that the winter that Davos normally sees, they've got the entire snowfall in a matter of just 4 days. So we are practically walking in 4 to 5 feet of snow, trudging our way around trying to get to speakers. And that's why the forum, though fast on its moves, is likely to slow down a tad. The snow story is here for you.
It's a 2-hour drive from Zurich to Davos, and the snow-clad Alps are pretty inviting. The scenic Switzerland gets everyone across the world to book their last week of January for all the action at the World Economic Forum. But when you're headed to the World Economic Forum for the biggest meet of the year, you can be sure this white all around will be snowing your way everywhere. This year, Davos is seeing the maximum snowfall since the 1960s. It's nearly 4 feet of snow everywhere. Could it be reflecting how deep the economic crisis is?
24 hours of non-stop snowing, and there is just no end to this weather here in Davos. This time around, no one has a choice about getting themselves a bit of sunlight, whether it's in the economic debate or whether it is getting it literally. Well, all this place that you see around me, especially the background of the promenade, much of it has actually been snowed in by 3 feet of snow. Most people are coming in slower, trudging their way in, especially the economists, a large number of global leaders, Indian CEOs, everyone's running late. And that's likely to be the story of the next 7 days here at Davos.
The Congress Center is looking like a massive igloo and expects to see over 2,600 registered people over the next 4 days, including heads of state and several public figures, many celebrities as well. Over 5,000 police and security officers are guarding the Davos region. Most of these people, the guests and the industrialists, will all be ferried over here in these golf carts to participate in the key sessions and discuss the future of capitalism. The queues for registration are long and winding, and everyone is being patient with the weather as they get their badges, which will then become their only identity in this high security zone.
Well, another special guest here is Azim Premji, who's been attending Davos year after year, trying to gauge the sentiment of the entire world, particularly from an India perspective. He has company company Wipro has met target in terms of the results, but more importantly, what feelers do they get from their entire client market ahead? The banks, the rest of the technology spend, how is that going to change? A perspective from Azim Premji on Davos Direct.
Mr. Premji, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
We're speaking to you on a day when people have seen a little bit of relief through a CRR cut coming back home, but really, India does need a huge, huge push right now, a push in confidence and a push in growth. How do you see that happening?
Well, I think we should wait till the outcome of the elections. And I think you'll get the government being quite active after the elections. Even if the results of the elections are neutral to the government, they'll still be active. I think they've realized that inaction is setting back the country in terms of economic growth rates. And that is sending a message.
Do you see the turning point happening, though, in both sentiment and, sort of approach? Do you think that whole talk, as we have seen a large number of CEOs, including yourself, say, government, do something? Do you think that that reaction is beginning to come now?
Well, I don't think necessarily it's coming because CEOs are saying it. I think it's coming through a process of self-realization, and that things have to be brought to a head. And I think that's good in a way, that they have realized it themselves. I think the fact that people spoke up may have helped the situation. I don't know how much.
Okay, but importantly, we're at Davos and everybody's looking up to you to get a sense of what's going on in India. Excitement come down. Do you feel that as a chairman yourself?
I think hypes have come down. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if we overhype ourselves up, or if others overhype us up, there's always a disappointment to follow.
Yeah.
And the fact that growth has slowed down from a level of 8.5% to 9% to 7 to 7.5%, I think the Prime Minister himself said it was going to be between 7 and 7.5%.
Right.
Is a damper on the situation. There's little doubt of it.
This time the contingent is also smaller and large number of CEOs have decided either to not come for whatever reasons, whether it's personal, professional, or just the crisis. Do you think sometimes CEOs also get tired about batting for India on an international forum when we've got so much mess happening back home? Scams?
But is the participation from India less this year
Yes,
compared
yes.
significantly? Or
Well,
less
at least the
significantly?
prominent people are not there. For example, Montek Singh just cancelled last night. Kamal Nath's not coming. Anand Mahindra dropped out because he's going to the Sundance Festival. So there are a bunch of people who one would normally see, along with you here, who've decided not to come.
Maybe they knew about the snow.
I know there's always a brighter side to it, but the fact that there is 4 feet of snow is also something that seems to suggest to people that's probably how deep we are in the crisis. So India is worried there.
No, but I don't think people have cancelled or have come here because that growths have slowed down. I think they just fitted in other priorities which were more overriding.
But what does that tell you about India? Do you think that the excitement around India, or let me put it this way, the World Economic Forum and the rest of the world, which has always said India is a gem, it's going to grow, and we're going to be crazy about it, the way we were, that has certainly come down.
I think we've got a lot of bad media across the world.
You're putting the gun on my shoulder now.
Not necessarily. You're part of the media.
Yeah.
By word of mouth also, we probably got some bad publicity. I think the telecom scandal has caused a huge amount of headlines. The scandal on governance
Yes.
has caused a huge amount of headlines.
Someone would say rightly so. I mean, the mess is out in the open.
Yes, but that's a good thing about our democracy, is that people can speak up. The press can speak up completely fearlessly.
Yeah.
And that's the strength of the country.
What do you
I
hope?
personally think that the economic engine of entrepreneurship is so strong in our country
Yeah.
that it will keep propelling the country forward. So it's really a play between 7% and 9%, which you're talking about in terms of GDP growth rate.
Snowed in, aren't we? And it continues to snow even as I speak to you. We're going to slip into a short break. You're watching Davos Direct. Coming up in his 34th year at Davos is Rahul Bajaj.
Discover the magic of converting your failing investments into star performers on Investor's Guide, only on ET Now.
Brought to you by Kotak Life Insurance.
Guys, ये मेहरबानी किस लिए?